All right.
That was a whirlwind through.
It was fast.
It was. So we're going to get to our skill, and you can see there's a piece of the rubric from the DBQ. And so while this skill is not limited to the DBQ, it is, absolutely assessed on the document-based question. And I think it's where students really struggle to try to understand that it's a thinking point. And so Todd is going to go over some strategies for how you can really do a good job with this. So let's look at what the rubric says. So in the DBQ, remembering that there's going to be 7 documents, for at least 3 of those documents, you need to explain how or why the document's point of view, purpose, historical situation, or audience is relevant to an argument. And if you can see in the little notes to the right, we need to not just identify the source or the purpose or the audience, but we actually have to explain why it's relevant to an argument about the prompt for each of the 3 documents that you choose to do this with, if not more, which is always a good best practice. And Todd and I will talk about that a little bit more tomorrow. So this sourcing point is one that we find students find really challenging. So Todd is going to walk you through some strategies to try to get better at this.
We have a strategy that we want to share with you called, we're just going to try to make the source happy is what we're going to do. So when you're using documents as evidence in an essay response, it is important to demonstrate attribution by using an in-text citation. And so that isn't where the point is earned, but that's what good writers do. They use in-text citation to introduce evidence. Okay, so this is part of learning to write well, and it demonstrates to readers that you're considering the source as you analyze, as you make the source happy. As you're introducing attribution, we encourage you to use these different attribution stems, and it really kind of lends itself to, oh, this is what I'm doing. It becomes very simple then. So if you begin with a stem like according to, or the statement issued by, or Galileo shared his perspective, then you get really kind of into that attribution right away. And then it gets your mind in this idea of, oh yeah, someone else wrote this, and what is their position on this? And what am I going to analyze as far as what they were getting at when they wrote this particular piece? So after you do the attribution, then briefly describe what's in the source. What are the contents of the source? This is what it says, okay? Please don't heavily quote it. Readers read it, they know what it says, but can you put it in your own words and just tell us what Galileo, for example, might be saying here? And then we want you to make the source happy. And so what happy means is it's just an acronym to help you remember, oh yeah, there are different ways I can source this. I could source this by historical situation, or by audience, or by purpose, or by point of view. And the why is I have to explain why this is important or significant. Why it's important or significant, because as Katie said, we have to do more than just identify, oh, this is the audience. We have to say why, explain how or why that's important or significant, okay? And so what I ask my students to do is when they just draw this kind of like a graph thing right next to the document as you go through, and we have, conclude the source when you're done with the source. You don't have to do this, but I really like it when students do. It kind of just ties off. Okay, I'm at the very end, when I'm done analyzing that source, if you could just put a little doc2 or doc whatever number it is at the end, it kind of signals, it's the signal of the end of that in-text citation. It's just really nice writing, okay? So what I encourage my students to do is to draw this kind of graph as they're doing some sourcing, with each quadrant being one of the sourcing areas. So H for historical situation, A for audience, P for purpose, P for point of view. And then I always say underneath, we have to make it happy. So why is this significant? So this is kind of our method that we want you to go through as you're doing sourcing, okay? All right, so let's look at an example of what that might look like. And I'm going to switch over now to the document camera, and there is Galileo. He's one of our documents, and we'll put Galileo on the document camera, and we'll do some of that work just real quick to give you an example. Great. So here he is, Galileo Galilei, Italian mathematician, astronomer, physicist. In a letter to the Grand Duchess Christina of Tuscany in 1615, Galileo writes a letter to Christina of Tuscany in 1615. So already it's a letter to her, and I'm thinking audience. Who is she? Why is he writing this as he's writing it? What is he going to tell her? And you always read the source line first, always read the source line first. In the DBQ or in this type of situation, it occurs first, so it's really easy. Then you read closely, read everything quickly, but closely. The reason produced for condemning the opinion that the earth moves around the sun stands still. Okay, so this is about heliocentric theory is what he's talking about, is that in many places in the Bible, one may read that the sun moves and the earth stands still. Since the Bible cannot err, it follows as necessary the consequence that anyone takes an erroneous or heretical position who maintains that the sun is inherently motionless and the earth movable. In other words, he's saying, I can't take this position because the Bible says this. With regard to this argument, however, I think in the first place, it is very pious. Here comes his argument to say, and prudent to affirm that the Holy Bible can never speak untruth. So he's kind of agreeing wherever its true meaning is understood. So as we were just learning, and Katie taught us, all of that came from Aristotle first, and then it was Saint Thomas Aquinas, right, who went and kind of made it fit with Christian doctrine. And so he is trying to lay out this argument, and again, he's speaking to Grand Duchess Christina of Tuscany. But I believe nobody will deny that it is often very abstruse and may say things which are quite different from what is its bare words signify. Hence, in expounding the Bible, if one were always to confine oneself to the unadorned grammatical meaning, one might fall into error. So unadorned grammatical meaning is that we have to believe that this was written at a time, in a different time, and now we're learning something new. I do not feel obliged to believe that the same God who's endowed us with senses, reason, and intellect has intended to forego their use by some other means to give us knowledge, which we can attain by them. He would not require us to deny sense and reason in physical matters which are set before our eyes and minds by direct experience or necessary demonstrations. He is talking about experiments. So I have closely read my document. I did my source line first, and I start to think about how can I source this document. I'm thinking maybe I'm going to talk about audience first, right? And how he's writing this to her, because she could be influential in changing some minds. Maybe you're thinking, well, this makes sense, the historical situation, right? We're making all these new discoveries. So you choose which of these quadrants you want to write about. You only need to do one, by the way. So you don't need to do all four to get the point. You need to do one per document 3 times to earn the points that will be available to you. Okay. And remember, I want to begin with my attribution. So according to Galileo, ... right? Then I want to have a describe of the documents. Yes. And then I want to say, if I'm doing the historical situation, I would say something very direct. The historical situation is, and just tell us. And then this is significant because, where you get at the how, why, or because, okay? So that is just a very quick how you want to make sure that you are doing that sourcing that way. Let's go back to our PowerPoint.
And Todd, can I just chime in a couple of things there?
Well, for sure. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurry us along.
Not at all. Just that I really liked that you're using those actual words that are in the rubric, right? So to make sure that we're just very clear